I had that like nail biting moment of, oh God, there it goes. I hope people don't hate it. It felt like I might be the only person in the world who this makes sense to or thinks this is cool.
One of the first times that I shared, I was surprised because I thought that I was going to be made fun of or ridiculed in front of my peers.
Eventually, I plucked up the courage to start sharing things online and on Instagram. And
my husband's like, you need to put this out into the world and see what the response is. And meanwhile, I'm thinking if there's any response.
I'm getting up in front of people and I'm going to offer a piece of myself to you. And that's it. And they receive it with delight in my experience because they're terrified on your behalf.
Welcome to Creative Creative. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ruth.
And we're talking about bravery today as it relates to creativity.
Yeah. We've learned a lot from our guests about being brave and creative because it takes a lot of guts to put something out there.
So people who do art publicly, there is some level of bravery involved. If you are creative on your own and never share, there's still the benefit of having done it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Joe Davies on. He is a performance artist and poet.
Written several books.
I was very aware in his story how someone else saw it in him. He wasn't going to share it.
Yeah.
Somebody saw his brilliance and encouraged him. Now he's one of the best-selling authors at Broadleaf and has spoken, I'm sure, to hundreds of thousands of people. Shared his poetry, his spoken word.
Yeah. That creativity, one of the beautiful things about it is it helps you feel not alone because, you know, other people resonate with what you're talking about.
So here's Joe.
I would just pour my heart and my soul into writing. And so I didn't want to share at first because what I had written was so personal and so vulnerable. I had teachers and mentors who said, oh, wow, you have a gift. You should share this with the rest of the class. And I was like, no. Like, I don't want to share these innermost vulnerable feelings with other people.
You go first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to share. But I always say that when you have people in your life who believe in you more than you believe in yourself, they're not going to give up on you. And I'm just indebted and forever grateful for my mentors and my teachers in my life who were able to pull that creativity out of me. And so eventually I started to warm up and I slowly came out of my shell. I started sharing a few pieces. I'll never forget one of the first times that I shared. I was surprised because I thought that I was going to be made fun of or I was going to be judged or ridiculed in front of my peers. But I actually had people come up to me and say, wow, I never knew that about you, or I've had a similar struggle. And so I learned at an early age that the more I shared, the more I realized that I wasn't alone, that I was connected to this larger story and this larger community. And so because of those spaces, I started to share more. I would go to open mics. I would go to poetry readings and started competing. I did Battle of the Bands. I did poetry slams. And so much so that the church I went to, they had me write the Christmas plays. And so I started realizing, oh, I have a knack for this. So I love writing. But then there's something magical that happens when we read it out loud, when we say things out loud. And I can connect with people in a different way. I get that immediate feedback when I'm performing a poem in community. You can see people's facial expressions and twinkle in their eyes, the spark that's lit when you say something that inspires them and resonates with them. And you kind of hear this like, Like I love that moment when someone makes those noises that no one tells you to make. Right. They just do it. You're like, everyone does it all at once as if it was choreographed. But I think that happens when the truth inside of me resonates with the truth inside of someone else. And that can happen in those moments of live performance. And so there's different things that are experienced and that occur, whether it's on the page or whether it's live in person.
It takes so much bravery to share that, but if you don't, you never know how
You're still alone.
Yeah.
It's that Brene Brown thing of everyone wants the other person to be vulnerable first, so you get to say me too. And somebody has to be first.
Exactly.
That's what he's doing, going out there and being vulnerable for entire communities.
Another one that be in this category is David Gate. David Gate lives in North Carolina, is a poet and a farmer. The community, thousands and thousands of people online who we just started sharing.
Yeah. He is vulnerable and says risky things.
He does. And that's what people resonate with.
Right.
And knowing that might resonate and it might not, but either way, you feel the need to share.
Yeah. Here's David Gate.
Eventually, I plucked up the courage to start sharing things online and on Instagram, and I got a little bit of encouragement, and that's all it needed for me to keep going. And then it just built and grew from there, and I learned about how to fully integrate like all of the things I wanted to say in a body of work, and just started to just really enjoy it and really found like my creative home doing it. I felt like, yeah.
So what year was that you started sharing on Instagram?
January 2021. So I posted like 1 or 2 things in 2020, and I went into January 2021 thinking I'm going to post once a week for the whole year. I forced myself and committed to it publicly. I always gave up 4 times during that. It took a lot getting used to the kind of the pattern of writing, sharing, and then dealing with the aftermath of sharing, which Brené Brown calls the vulnerability hangover, and just dealing with that process on a weekly basis. Probably took me 3 to 6 months to like start to somewhat feel comfortable with it, and then it probably took another year before I really got over it. But now I just post away. I just post all the time.
Nice.
Don't care.
Yeah. And you have a lot of followers, over 74,000 followers.
There's something about you taking the risk of putting it out there and being vulnerable because there are 74,000 followers and the publisher definitely looked at the number.
Yeah.
There's a following.
Yeah,
like, that is one thing someone could take away is be vulnerable enough to put it out there and find the audience.
Oh, for sure. The real difficulty on my part in terms of getting to the point now where I'm doing a book was those initial steps and being vulnerable enough to share. The writer in me wants to make everything perfect before I put it out into the world. I think a lot of writers have that feeling. I don't want anything with my name on. I don't want anything out there that's not the absolute best that I could do. And I get that, and I definitely feel that. But I think growing up doing music, and in some ways doing sermons as well, because sermons are a very particular art form in so much as you write this thing and then you perform it once, and I'll call it a performance because it is. And so you write this thing and then you perform it once and then that's it, unless you're in a multiple,
Like 2 services.
yeah, like 2 services. But even then it's the same day usually, so it's not like you can go away and hone it. It's this very one-off, and that's unique. Because the stand-up would go up and practice individual jokes and so forth in front of people. Even the big, huge comedians will practice. They'll go out and do small rooms and small clubs and refine the material. And musicians and bands do that all the time. They take out a new song and try it out on the road, and then the new song changes and like it begins to inform the work. And I think writers don't really do that. Writers want to sit in their room, whittle it down to the most perfect thing, and then put it out as a finished thing, and then that's it. And I think there's something about, for me, and I was like posting every week, multiple times a week on social media, was I had to grow in public, right? I had to get better and suck and like almost get it, but not quite, like so many times in front of people that actually I think it taught me resilience in my writing, but also helped me focus in. It's like a writer can get in their own head a lot and overthink the work. I think a lot of writers are overthinkers. And so when you're committed to putting things online, there's this, it's coming every week that you want to put something out. And so deadlines help, and the idea that other people are going to see this sharpens you. The feeling of rejection that you're afraid of as a writer, you just get used to it. If you're posting all the time, like you begin to get used to, oh, this post didn't do very well, or I was really hoping this person would like this poem and they really didn't. And just those little rejections, just becoming more comfortable with them. But also the way it works for me, this is so different to everyone else, because I have lots of friends who are writers, and on Instagram now, a community of us that do similar things to me.
Christine Davies.
She found community on Substack.
Yep, through being brave to share writings that she wasn't so sure that people would want to read, but she's found that a lot of people want to read about grief and loss and sorts of things she's writing. She is a chaplain and a CPE supervisor. She lives in New Jersey, writes a very popular Substack. I saw that you just hit 1,000 followers on your Substack. Is that right?
Yes. Seth Godin says you just need 1,000 followers and you can do anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was surprised at how touched I was by that milestone.
You were the first person who I think I ever followed on Substack, and I really didn't know much about it before.
That should go on my bio, that I am the first Ruth ever followed.
Yes, yes. And I didn't know much about it at all before I was talking to you about it. So had you heard about it for a while before you decided to be on Substack? What made you feel like this was the move for you?
I had not heard about it until my husband said, you need to do this. He's a little more tech savvy than I. I blogged for years when that was popular, and I had just been writing independently on my own, not for anyone else's view, for the past decade or so. Snippets of what I thought might maybe be a manuscript one day, but just writing for my own purposes. And my husband's like, you need to put this out into the world and see what the response is. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, if there's any response, I don't know that these stories are going to resonate. They're sad. Who wants to hear about this? Well, it turns out 1,000 people.
Yes, we know exactly how many people want to hear about this.
So that was really nice. But the other neat thing about it is getting to meet other people. So people can comment, people can email me. I've had Zoom meetups with individuals. I've had people come up to me at conferences and say, oh, you're Christine Davies. My supervisor gave me an article of yours to read after supervision one day. And so just knowing that it may be helping people out there has been really the greatest gift from doing it.
You know who else is brave? Andrea Roske-Metcalfe.
The first time she got up to do Story Slam.
Yeah, she ended up winning the Grand Slam, meaning she beat people in multiple rounds.
Yep.
Telling stories with no notes in front of a live audience.
Yep. And she felt that pull. That would be something that she would like to try. And now she's done it many times. Now she teaches about using your story. She teaches groups about telling their story.
I have won 3 story slams, which is where you just put your name in the hat and it's amateur night. They draw names. So I've been in 3 grand slams and I've won one of those. My understanding of storytelling is it's just pure gift. There's no agenda, which is what makes it different. It's hard to think of ways that we interact today without agenda, but storytelling at its core is pure gift. I'm getting up in front of people and I'm going to offer a piece of myself to you. And that's it. That's the whole point. And it's a rush. The moth format especially is there's no note. It's just you and the microphone. You can't even move the microphone. It's on a stand and you're not allowed to move it. You just stand there. No notes, no props. And you just offer this gift to the people who are there and they receive it with delight, in my experience, because they're terrified on your behalf.
Right. They know you're up there with no notes.
Yes,
you're a real human standing in front of them.
Everyone knows what's happening. But it's also just a gift to be doing that. And it's a rush. And that doesn't happen without the people listening. You can't do it on your own. You could record it and then put it out in the world, but it's not the same. It's not the same at all.
How has the storytelling changed you?
That's a good question. You all ask good questions. So I came to this craft when my kids were like 2 and 6. And so I was in the thick of all the things, right? Like the daycare drop-offs and the kindergarten, first grade stuff. And I was a full-time pastor and it was only for me. There's nothing in this for my family. Now there is because I don't do workshops for free, but I'm still away from them when I do those. But especially these early days when it was just me doing this for the moth, it was just for me. And there wasn't much in my life at the time. I loved my life at the time, but there was very little that was just for me. And that was just for me. And it felt really good and sort of scandalous. You're not supposed to have little kids and have a house and lots of responsibilities and just do stuff for yourself, except you should. And the pull with this was that strong that I just didn't care if people thought I should be doing it or not. And I wasn't getting pushback. It was all in my own head. But I come alive when I'm doing that in ways that I don't when I'm doing other things. And I would assume that the 2 of you know this, and I hope the people who are listening to this know this. But when you find something that does that to you, you should pursue it. That stuff doesn't come along very often.
And then Julie Hoplamazian.
She is an Episcopal priest, but we talked to her about Faith on Point, which is an online group teaching ballet and making that into a spiritual practice.
Yes.
She was creative on her own, as many of us are, took the risk to share it.
Yes.
And found it with right away, got 25 or 30 people interested.
When Faith on Point started, I had that like nail biting moment of, oh God, there it goes. I hope people don't hate it, because it felt at that point like I might be the only person in the world who this makes sense to or thinks this is cool. And then I got such a volume of response. All I did was I shared it in one place on Facebook, I think, or 2 places. And I got 25 responses or 30 responses. And I was like, that's 3 cohorts. I don't like more than 10 people in a cohort because I like that smaller, intimate. So I like filled up my cohorts. And when I started them, I was so nervous because I still was like, oh God, I hope people get what they think they're signing up for. And I had such a broad range of people. There, like one of the people who took the class was a professional dancer and taught ballet. And then other people had never danced before. And I was like, I don't know how to shoot to the middle of this. How do you teach this one? And I think there was a way that I was so nervous Nelly about it and tried to be all things to all people. But you'll learn a lot as you go on. It's always in rough draft form at the beginning. And then what I realized was that people liked the practice. They liked the face on point. What people really liked and I think got value out of was the community, was doing this with other people, even on a screen. I think even the Zoom thing helped because dance is so vulnerable. Like when you're moving your body in these ways, especially something that is a performance art. And especially if you've seen it performed, you know what it should look like. You don't look like that. There's all these layers of judgment that come in. And when it is just you in a room, I always let people position the screen wherever they want. It's not a class. I'm not giving you correction, right? This is not turnout or straighten your knee a little more. I'm not doing that. And so I want people to feel comfortable moving their body. So I let them if you just want me to have your neck up, that's fine. And I think there's some freedom in people being able to be like, you know what? I'm in a virtual room with people. And also, okay, no one's watching. I don't have to feel like an idiot. And there is something kind of liberating about that. One of the things I had learned was simplify it. Just simple phrases of choreography. You don't need to do like a whole huge center combination. Right. In my ballet background, I'm like, people obviously are going to want more. They're going to want it to be meaningful, but people just want to be able to do it. So I had learned to reduce and simplify. And we had done this together. It's really more of a physio divina that we lean into. So it's a repeated phrase. And by the end, one of the people was like, I just want to run into my church because she was a priest of a parish and she lived next door to the church. I just want to run into the sanctuary and do that on my own, like in the sanctuary. And everybody else on the call was like, oh my God, yes, that was so beautiful. I can't wait to do that on my own. And that was a communal moment, right?
Can you think of a time you've been creative and brave?
I can tell you about a time I was not brave.
Okay.
You may know I have 2 master's degrees. One was from Luther Seminary near to where I was living and working. And my second one is organizational psychology from NYU. And when I interviewed at NYU in Columbia, they were like, why are you coming here? Minnesota has a better program. And I was like, I just want to be in New York.
Yeah.
I used the master's as a cover to see how I could do in musical theater. It was scary to say I'm going to go to New York and start auditioning. And it was too scary to just find an apartment. Like, I didn't live in NYU housing, but they had lists of apartments in subletting. I was then doing something I was pretty confident in, academic world.
Yeah.
And I do use the master's. A subset of that is coaching.
Yeah.
I was choosing to do it here because I didn't know how I'd measure up. And I didn't want to be telling everyone I'm actually here to audition for professional theater.
Yeah. That seems smart.
I was brave enough to come here by myself. Yeah. Live in a pretty difficult town, especially when you don't know people. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. It's a hard city, but I love it.
Yeah.
For those of you just joining us, it worked out, but I had no idea how I would measure up. Find my place, which took a while.
Yeah. But I still think it was brave. Like you were tiptoeing along the side. You still made your way in. And that's a beautiful thing.
So how much of creativity is bravery?
You always have to be brave, right? Even trying to do some watercolor on your own, you're brave to try.
Because as soon as you're not brave, you're just a conveyor belt recreating something you know you do well. Maybe those people doing the same thing over and over are having some kind of benefit or themselves, honestly. We talk to people who are like, I could keep doing this, but I was bored. That's Rob Bell.
Yeah, yeah.
We think of Rob Bell as brave, giving up a high-profile position, one of Time Magazine's 50 most influential people, and he does not think it's brave.
People wanted one thing, but
yes,
he needed to be making these other things he was called to make, and it's not making money. He's happy, fulfilled.
Rob Bell walked away in order to live rurally in California and write in a genre that nobody was asking him to write in.
Yep.
That's brave.
People wanted certain kinds of books from Rob Bell, but wanted to write novels and do some art. Very brave.
What's interesting is thinking about audience just shuts off the flow. It's always been listening to what it is and trying to tune my ear to it to make it. It's always been a very quiet, solitary thing that was doing something to me and trusting that this was helping me. So who knows? Just always trusting if it did something to me, then maybe it'll say something to somebody else. Yeah, but some sort of what do people want or how is this always has just shut it down. It's just like a kill switch.
Because then you start to second guess or something.
And what's interesting, especially if you've put things in the world that connected with people, is however wonderful that feeling is, those also inherently are voices that are conservative because they are, please keep doing the thing that I liked, but I'm following something. I don't know if those voices tend to jam up the antenna. You're like so grateful and moved that you made something that connected with people, but human nature is please keep singing those songs, keep making more songs like those songs that you made. When
be what I want you to be.
You might be evolving or moving into all new. Nobody was asking for a book about spaceships. So it's a very interesting, it's almost like you're following something that's happening within you and that may or may not relate to the thing that came before it, but it's all okay. But yeah, it's a very real part of the process.
So you've been a parish pastor, a speaker, a painter, an author, fiction and nonfiction. Does it feel brave to go from one type of creativity to another, or you're just like, it's time, here it is, let's see what happens?
It literally is like a chapter ends and another chapter begins. My wife, Kristen, calls it parking. She'd be like, you could park at any point and just do more of what you did back there at that moment, which is fine. But for some reason, for me, the sort of the exploration, even the beginner's mind of being in territory where I know nothing, like literally in the meetings about my plays with theater people, I will literally just stop and be like, what does that mean? What was the thing in the last meeting? What does off book mean? Like, I just have to like just stop and ask them what all of this terminology. And that for me is part of the joy of it, is not knowing. I'll literally go into the art store and ask the most basic. I'll take a bottle to the front. What does this do to paint? I know they're probably like, who is this guy who like knows nothing? But for me, at least, that's part of the discovery. That's part of the fun. Or even on my podcast, I'll have a story. And how much of this story do I just tell the story? Like one right now, I may record later today. How much of this do I explain? How much of this do I just tell the story? Almost like the restraint to just let, almost like a parable in the sense of whatever you don't explain it, just tell the story and see what it does to people. And so oftentimes I'm experimenting, or I'll do an episode about a previous episode, and then I'll give commentary on the episode I'm doing, like almost like creating multiple concentric rings of Inception, like the sort of meta, it's all absurd. So even for your listeners, sometimes it's the same form, or like for a pastor, it could be a sermon. It's the same form. So it's not like leaving fiction and going to nonfiction or doing whatever and then doing painting. Sometimes you're working in the same form. You've just come in through a different door and you're trying what would have been a talk. You all decide to write a letter to the people. And then you get up and instead of saying, here are my points this week, you say, dear people who I speak to each week, I didn't know how to give a sermon on this. So I decided to write you a letter. And everybody's like, wait, is she reading us a letter she wrote? It's weird right now, isn't it? Because you're all sitting there thinking this is the time for the sermon, but instead I'm reading a letter. Yeah, it's weird for me too, but just stay with me. For some reason, it felt like it should be a letter. You see what I'm saying? So now you're like narrating the experience of the people in the room who are having you read them. And suddenly the whole experience, which you've done week after week, the whole room is like tilting just a little. It's a little surreal. And yet you're also like, oh, we're getting at things in a new, this is really interesting. So sometimes it's a new form, but sometimes it's simply an entirely new angle or framing or energy to a form that you've been working in for years. And that's what's really interesting. When you rediscover new approaches to the same form, that can be just as thrilling as being in an art store going, what's stuff in this tube do?
Right. Yeah. It's sometimes you want to go deep. Sometimes you want to go wide.
Yes, exactly.
He was fascinating because he just was like, this is a chapter. I'm done. Now I'm parking here.
Yep.
So what we ourselves think is brave is not always what the person experiencing it would characterize as brave.
It's just the next step on the journey. And it almost becomes like there's no other choice except to take that next step when it's clear.
Well, like my thing, I'm saying I wasn't brave because I was doing it in what I perceive as a scared way. He's saying he's not brave. He didn't feel like he had to use those resources. He was just done with one thing and on to the next.
I think that's a good way to say it. And he's always consistently evolving. His being that we're always evolving.
Yes. Tell me when you've been brave and creative.
I feel more like Rob Bell in that the changes in my life just felt like the next thing. Something is being born here, whether it's a business, moving, or having kids. You know, life is changing. It's time for the next season.
I felt brave moving across the country. You're right.
Oh, yeah, that is.
Right. I would say I felt brave in my creativity with 100 different things when I used to design the extravaganza, which is an event for Lutheran youth workers, that we would try these creative takes on Bible passages or juxtapose different art or put in movie clips on themes. It may be great. It may be one thing per event we realized was funny to us when planning at midnight, not good in the morning.
I'm sure. I bet it's a lot like Saturday Night Live.
Very much. We would talk about that all the time. Like, this thing is only funny at night.
Yeah.
We think we're hilarious and say something and it's just nothing. But I mean, many other times things went over better than we imagined. So
that's great. I love that.
The bravery of being creative about a project versus being creative about your life, creating your life. Rob Bell is creating a life.
Yeah. He has a book he's reading chapter by chapter on his Patreon about that topic.
It's not about the spaceship.
No, more of a how do you listen for that unfolding of creativity in your life and listen to that even if it's scary and you might not get paid.
So that's all. I didn't know that's what he was reading. Here he is, renting again.
Yeah.
So overall, we're finding that sharing your creativity can be vulnerable, but when you do, either create it with other people and or share it with others who resonate, it's feeling and like a basic human need, not some extra fluff.
I think every time we say, go create something at the end of our episode, we're encouraging bravery. See where the spirit leads you, see where creativity leads you, and take that step. Who knows what it'll be this week, but go create something.
Yeah. And we are very much believers that you can be more brave when supported by a community. And so that's what we are trying to create with our Patreon.
Yes, very community focused.
So everyone check it out with our link. It is hard to search it on Patreon. There are 3 levels. At every level, you feel a part of something. The $5 level is a sticker. The $10 level will be gathering to be creative together, show and tell, support one another. At the $20 level, I'll be doing creative coaching like you hear on many episodes.
We wanted this to be a place where it's a benefit to our listeners to be part of the Patreon. We're so glad for each one of our listeners, and we'd love to engage with you more.
So go create something.
Go create something.